Hi viewers, we are going to learn few things about compare and contrast essay. Things that you should know before you write this type of essay. 1. You have to analyze two items or text from similar category. While comparing, look for the differences between two or more things. While contrasting, point out or consider the differences between those things. You may discuss similarities or differences. And lastly, you have to help the readers to understand the subjects discussed. Compare and contrast essay. Sometimes it focuses on two items or text from similar category and you have to look for similarities or differences. And sometimes it can also focus at two items or text from different category and still you have to look for similarities or differences. While writing compare and contrast essay, you can use point by point or the block method. Let's take a look at the sample questions. Coffee and tea, which one is bad for your health? Fiction or non-fiction, the most suitable genre for children's bedtime stories. Choosing between studying abroad or studying in Malaysia, what factors to be taken into consideration? Traveling alone compared to traveling in groups, what are the pros and cons? 5. Paragraph essay outline. Introductory paragraph, body or content paragraph number 1, number 2, number 3, and lastly concluding paragraph. Introductory paragraph. Introduce the readers to an essay based on the questions or the motion given to you. You should use catchy opening lines, rhetorical questions, anecdotes, definitions, so on and so forth, as long as it attracts the readers. You have two types of thesis statements for compare and contrast essay. Number 1, you compare two subjects without taking a particular stance on either one. Number 2, you declare one subject to be better or worse than another. Sample introductory paragraph. So I chose the question, fiction or non-fiction, the most suitable genre for children's bedtime storybooks. Opening sentences or attention grabber. Most parents would splurge on so many things just for the sake of their children's happiness. Branded clothes, scrumptious food, lavish accessories, or even the latest gadgets in the market would be their best options to make sure that their children would not miss anything in life. In my opinion, I would rather focus on their knowledge and well-being before spending my money on unnecessary things. So I have here two thesis statements. Number 1, therefore, for my children's bedtime stories, both fiction and non-fiction books are the best tools for their psychological growth. So I'm not choosing any of the given ideas. I just state the statement as in general. The second one, therefore, books are actually the first thing that I would introduce to my children, especially fiction books, if comparing to the non-fiction books. So in thesis statement number 2, I clearly stated fiction books as my first choice. Sample 1, introductory paragraph. So as you can see here, I have written accordingly and I put the last sentence as my thesis statement. In that case, I would buy a lot of books before anything else. to make sure my children acquire countless of information as they are growing up. Therefore, for my children's bedtime stories, both fiction and non-fiction books are the best tools for their psychological growth, without taking any particular stance on either one. Next sample. The same question, the same sentences, but I change a little bit at my thesis statement. In that case, I would buy a lot of books before anything else to make sure my children acquire countless of information as they are growing up. Therefore, books are actually the first thing that I would introduce to my children, especially fiction books if comparing to the non-fiction books. Clearly, in my thesis statement, I declare fiction books is the best choice. Okay, for the writing process, body or content paragraph, I have two methods here, point by point. So take a look at body 1. Fiction books help children to be empathic on certain situations. Non-fiction books help children to understand real events or situations in life. Discuss, compare the relevant ideas, connections, information regarding the given point. So I have given here 1 point each for fiction and non-fiction. Body number 2, both fiction and non-fiction books aid children to acquire vast vocabulary. I have given similar or the same point for body number 2. Body number 3, fiction books help children to be creative. Non-fiction books help children to deal with real life. Two different point of view. Okay, what about block method? Body number 1, fiction book. So body number 1 is all about fiction books. Body number 2 is all about non-fiction books. The same points that I have stated earlier. And body number 3, it could be the comparison, the contrasting idea that I would like to highlight as I have discussed in body number 1 and body number 2. Linkers or connectors. Here I have listed out few types of linkers or connectors. I have adding, sequencing, illustrating, emphasizing, cause and effect, comparing, contrasting. When you are doing the comparing and contrasting, you have to choose suitable linkers or connectors. Concluding sentence starter. Here are few concluding sentence starter. Concluding sentence starter at the end of your body content paragraph. Therefore, overall, hence, thus, as a result, for this reason, in general, so on and so forth. Concluding paragraph. To bring to a closure of things that you have discussed earlier, that you have compared and contrast. And you have to summarize your opinions or reaffirm your choice depending on which thesis statement that you have used in your introductory paragraph. You have to restate your thesis statement which consists of your main ideas. Concluding paragraph starter. Here I have few concluding paragraph starter to conclude, to summarize, in conclusion, as a conclusion, to sum up, to encapsulate, lastly. Okay, sample 1, concluding paragraph. I have here the thesis statement Therefore, for my children's bedtime stories, both fiction and non-fiction books are the best tools. So I have chosen both items. So to conclude, living in this modern world surrounded by modern technologies does not mean that we have to put aside our children's psychological growth. By letting them read a lot of bedtime storybooks, it might help to strengthen their mental health, as those books can be one of the ways to run away from a stressful daily life. Based on what I have discussed earlier, both fiction and non-fiction books could be the best tools for my children's psychological growth. All in all, books are great companions in our life. So I restate my thesis statement here. Sample number 2. So this one I have stated especially fiction books. So the sentences are the same. Based on what I have discussed earlier, fiction books would be my first choice to be introduced to my children if comparing to the non-fiction books. By letting them read a lot of bedtime storybooks, it might help to strengthen their mental health, as those books can be one of the ways to run away from a stressful daily life. So I restate this statement by mentioning fiction books would be my choice. So all in all, compare and contrast essay is actually about comparing and contrasting ideas, and you have to give relevant supporting details to support your essay. With that, thank you.